All right, lovely artist, I have finished folding my 6 signatures. I have wrapped each of them in black watercolor paper. Now, you don't have to wrap each signature if you don't want to, but I highly recommend wrapping at least the first and the last signature in your book stack because that paper is going to become the end paper of your book. So the next thing you need to do is you're going to get out your ruler and your pencil. And from the left edge, you're going to mark the center fold of each signature. You're going to mark it at these measurements. Now, there's a couple of things you can do. You could make yourself a paper template. This is what I do in my classroom for my students, and I mark the dots where it needs to go. Or you can just use a fine point Sharpie and mark it directly on your ruler, or use a piece of scrap cardboard, make a template that way. I'm going to show you right here how to make that template. You would cut this out, do your measurements here. What we want is we want 1/2 inch in from each side. The reason that I tell you to start from the left is because not all paper manufacturers are entirely honest in their measurements. And so your paper might be off by a millimeter or 2. If you don't start your marking at the same spot and you don't keep your signatures in the same orientation, then they might end up not being even and looking a little shuffled between the covers. Again, that's fine. It's an art book, but I like to make it as neat as possible if I can. So I'm going to make my first mark at 1/2 inch, my next mark at 2 inches, and then 2.5 inches. This is going to become the center marks of my book because it's going to be 9 inches tall. So the midpoint is 4.5. So 1/2 inch centered there will put us at 4.25, 4 3/4. Our next set will move up to 6.5 and 7, and then our final mark will be at 8.5. So you can see we're going to be 1/2 inch in from each edge, and then we will have 3 pairs of holes, and each pair of holes is 1/2 inch apart. If you opt for making different size books, half size, double size, whatever size you have, just do the math. Just know that your first holes need to be 1/2 inch in from the top and bottom. And then depending on how tall or short your book is, you need to have at least 2 pairs. If you do a really giant book, you can make as many pairs as is reasonable. But start simple first. I always say start small and then go big. So this is what this looks like here in the center of a signature. So you're going to open up your first signature all the way to the middle. Make sure you're right here in the center fold. Take your ruler or your template, if that's how you're working, and make sure that the 0 lines right up with the edge. That's another thing that you have to double check because not all ruler manufacturers start their rulers at 0. Sometimes there's extra material over here and the 0 will be a bit in, which means if you put it right at the edge of the ruler and that's not 0, all of your math will be wrong. So I'm going to use a pencil. You don't have to use a metallic purple pencil, but you can if it makes you happy. This definitely makes me happier than a plain pencil. And I'm just going to put a little dot where I'm going to puncture through that signature with my awl in the next step. So I have my measurements written down so I know where to go. So my first one is 1/2 inch, 2, 2.5, 4.25, 4.5, bump, 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 bump. Sorry, 4 3/4, not 4.5. 6.5, 7, get that little dot right in the crease, and then 8.5, okay? And if you make a mistake, I just made an extra mark right there. You can erase it or you can ignore it. I vote for ignoring it. So you're going to do this to all 6 signatures. I highly recommend that you work assembly line style. So don't make one signature at a time. Go ahead and mark them all so they're all oriented the same way. And then we're going to come back and we're going to punch them all. So finish marking your signatures. I'm going to finish marking mine and I'll see you back here.